What story are you trying to tell? This is a question I often ask when I look at someone's content efforts that seem to be all over the map. The answer to this question is usually a, what do you mean? Or a blank stare.
You're not gonna say anything. You're just gonna stare at me. That's what you're bringing to the table.
But as I'll explain today, everything you put out into the world should be tied to that story that you want to tell. And that story shouldn't be buy my product. My name is Tara and this is Truly Social. Whether you know it or not, what you are putting online and everywhere else, frankly, is telling a story. No, I'm not referring to a once upon a time story with a beginning, middle, and end, though sometimes we tell those stories too. What I'm referring to is the underlying story of what you stand for and why people should care. And of course, this requires the essential detail of, well, standing for something in the first place.
If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
This is, as you'll find out, the most important part of the equation. As Annette Simmons says in her awesome book, The Story Factor, you should really pick it up. When you ensure that the stories you tell and the story you live are consistent with your beliefs, life is less stressful. As the story you live, tell, and believe becomes more congruent, you don't feel scattered, pushed, and pulled by external events. Now, if that sounds a bit fluffy to you, I get it.
It's so fluffy!
For years, as soon as I heard people talk about storytelling, I'd roll my eyes and ignore anything else they had to say. Storytelling is so subjective. It's not measurable, it's a buzzword that's completely overused. But reading Simmons' book really helped me see it from a different angle. No, there wasn't data points or studies throughout the book, but she was masterful in using story to demonstrate how people connect with certain messages while they ignore other messages.
Why is everyone ignoring me? Answer me!
And it just kept occurring to me as I read through the book that it is brands and the people that live their story that are the brands and people we tend to pay attention to. Think about it. The most influential people out there are the best storytellers. Obama, masterful storyteller. Brené Brown bowls me over every time with her stories about vulnerability. And Gary Vaynerchuk, well, there's a man who literally lives his story and tells it while he's living it. And so then, what is your story? And if you're creating content for a brand rather than for yourself, how do you find that story? Okay, I'm going to start with the individual because that one is a bit easier. Your own story is found in your passions, your values, and your experience. Basically what Nilofer Merchant, who I've mentioned before and whose new book just launched, talks about as onlyness. Onlyness is the opposite of trying to fit in or trying to be just like someone else you admire. It's the process of recognizing who you are, what you stand for, and figuring out that your voice matters. Obviously, it's not something you can just turn on and off, but I'll cover this process a bit more in depth in a later video. But what do you do if you're in charge of content for a brand? And what if that brand doesn't really seem to stand for anything but selling stuff?
It's like people only do things because they get paid. And that's just really sad.
We've all been there. If a brand has no story and you've been given the task of creating communications and content for that brand, it can seem like an impossible hurdle. As Annette Simmons says, your vision, teaching, and values and action stories will not influence others unless they see you living the stories you tell. A brand that isn't living the stories they tell will not be influential to their audience. Now, I think the answer to this question is too big to bite off in just this one video. So if you're convinced that you need to tell a story, you should come back next week to get a deeper dive into how to find that story. And better yet, subscribe and click the bell to be notified when I post that video. My name is Tara, and this has been Truly Social.